So you went to the doctor with some shoulder issues and you were told that you have a full thickness tear of your rotator cuff. And there's a good chance that somebody along the way, perhaps the doctor, also told you that eventually you are going to need surgery on that shoulder. Or, hey, let's schedule that surgery for next week. There's a big problem with this line of thinking, though, is that the long-term data on full thickness rotator cuff tears does not support a rush to surgical intervention. And there was a recent study in the last couple of years that was following patients with full thickness rotator cuff tears over a 10-year period. So we're not talking 1 year, we're not talking 2 years, we're talking people that were told they had a full thickness rotator cuff tear and they were followed for an entire decade. And about 75% of those people across those 10 years managed to successfully deal with their full thickness rotator cuff tear without surgical intervention. And the numbers in that group stayed remarkably stable over even more time after that 10 years. So let's let that sink in for a second. 3 out of 4 people who were diagnosed with a full thickness tear of their rotator cuff avoided surgical intervention. And the tear did not automatically determine the outcome that the person was going to have. These patients went through a structured, non-operative program for their rotator cuff, and the goal isn't to heal the tear, because that's likely not what's going to happen with a full thickness tear, but the goal is to improve the function of the shoulder with what is available. And this is where everybody gets confused. You can have a completely torn rotator cuff and maintain a highly functional shoulder. The internet treats every MRI finding like it's some sort of ticking time bomb going in your body. And that's just not how things work. You can have full thickness tears, you can have partial tears, you can have degenerative tendons, you can have arthritis in the shoulder, and you can still maintain very high levels of function. And oftentimes people can have all 4 of those things and have zero pain, and they just happen to have some sort of incidental findings because of some other issue they went into a healthcare provider for. And the important thing to remember is that the study that they were looking at didn't prove anything about surgery being useless. That's not the point that the study made. It's not the point I'm trying to make. There were people that surgical intervention was very helpful, and that was their choice, and it made a big difference. And 25%, it's still not a small number, chose to have surgical intervention. But the overwhelming majority of people in that cohort that looked at opted to not have any surgery, and they were able to maintain very high quality of life even after 10 years of declining to have surgical injury on a full thickness tear of their rotator cuff. So the question isn't what is shown on the MRI. The question becomes, what can you still do with your shoulder, and what can you rebuild your shoulder to do? How can you retain capacity and improve it? So I've worked with lots of people over the years that have been told they have full thickness rotator cuff tears, shoulder arthritis, partial tears, and I've turned around and got them doing pull-ups again, pressing overhead, doing the bench press, training heavy, training with intensity, training with frequency, training very often, training with volume, all of the above. And what ends up happening is you help the person restore function, build capacity, and their fear drops, their confidence goes up, and they may have certain positions or instances that give them a little bit of trouble here and there, but for the most part, they move on with their life and they don't even think about it anymore. So there's so many people that get a diagnosis like this, and then they just stop using their shoulder once they're told they have a full thickness rotator cuff tear. They never look to see if they can rebuild capacity, if they can start doing something for themselves to avoid intervention. It's tendon broke, doctor fix. So what ends up happening is they stop trying to keep capacity. They quit all their pressing, they quit reaching overhead, they quit putting load on the shoulder, they quit doing any training. And it's likely because whoever told them they had a full thickness tear told them to stop doing those things. And then everyone starts to blame the tear when they get weaker and lose capacity. But the loss of capacity cannot be blamed on the anatomy. It's blamed on you and the person that told you to stop. So the rotator cuff tear might change the picture a little bit, but it doesn't automatically determine the ending to the story. So the MRI gives us information, 100%, but that's really all it does. But it does not give you a destiny. And the thing to remember is you do not need to have a perfect rotator cuff to maintain high function and quality of life. You just need a shoulder that can do what you demand of it.